Good evening, everyone. The Youth Sailing Academy, which began in 1993 at the CYC, as we've seen a lot of graduates go through, and it's been a highly successful program, I think, in the 27 years for the club. So, and you guys are all graduates of that program. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, perhaps, of the Sailing Academy, I'd just like to get a bit of a background from each of you, where you began sailing and what led you, I guess, to the Youth Sailing Academy. So, ladies first. Amanda, good evening to you. So, give us a bit of a background. How did you get involved into sailing, and what brought you to the CYC?
We were born into water in our house, just about. Grew up down in Victoria on the Gippsland Lakes, and obviously Dad was right into sailing with all his offshore stuff, and his father as well, so had nowhere else to go really, and Mum's family sort of taught themselves to sail out of a book, so there was a little bit on that side as well.
Okay, well, Tom, now I first ran into you, Tom, many years ago. I'm dating myself a bit here, I knew your grandfather well, Roger. I know your father well, Richard, but I first saw you sailing Flying 11s, I don't know how long ago, doesn't matter really. And you all but won a national title up in Port Stephens. Should I remind you of that or not?
Yeah, no, that's a good one. That was a good lesson in accepting defeat, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so I grew up from Belmont, sailing through those classes, went through Flying 11s and 29ers. Also come from a family of sailors. Both Mum and Dad have pretty rich sailing history, and came to the CYCA. It's probably similar to you, Amanda. Kind of was doomed to always end up at the CYCA, with my grandfather and father having a very strong connection there. But it was a really logical choice when I moved down to Sydney to start uni, as just a way to get into some really high level racing and get some really good support networks around me at a low cost to myself. That's kind of why I stepped into it.
And what were your first boats, Tom?
In Belmont, we have a thing called a Pelican,
yeah,
which is a one-off free sail two-person little dinghy. So when you win the club championships, you can pat yourself on the back as the world champion on that one. So that was the first world champion world championship that we won, and we still have that photo hanging on the wall.
Great. Yeah. Well, Ben, you're the son of a former Commodore of the CYC, Jeff Lavis, well-known member, a very popular Commodore. Where did sailing begin for you?
Yeah, like the others, I think I was sort of born into a sailing family. Didn't really have a choice. So I started sailing. I grew up in Wollongong in New South Wales, so I started sailing on Skyriders on Lake Illawarra. And I don't even know if they exist anymore, but they're just a flat...
What was it again? Skyrider? What were they?
Skyrider. It's like a flat disc, like a foam disc with a single sail, really basic.
Right.
Completely non-maneuverable little thing. And I hated it. I thought it was the silliest sport in the world, to be honest. So, but so I started out on those things, and then progressed to flying ants. And eventually to 16-foot skiffs, and I think it was around that period. I think I was doing skiffs or flying ants. It was sort of that crossover period where I started the YSA in 1993. So I was there for the very first year that it started. Yeah, long time ago.
Yeah. Well, just moving on to the YSA, what were your impressions then in the early days? I guess you're fairly young then, and leave some good impressions, I guess, hopefully.
Yeah, look, it was an amazing opportunity, to be honest. And we had a lot of young sailors my age, come into the club, and I think it was quite a evolutionary period for the club as well, because youth sailing certainly wasn't a thing that was promoted prior, certainly in the 80s and prior. So coming in at 93 was it was a great era. The club was really accepting, and it took off so quickly. the YSA managed to get a good group of sponsors, which got I think we had 10 Elliott 5.9s back then, and Dane Sharp as our coach, and for the majority of us, or everyone there, I think it was our first real introduction to professional sailing and actually being coached rather than just sort of being pushed out onto the lake or whatever and saying, have a go and see if you can figure it out. So for me, it was the start of a lot of great opportunities.
And Amanda, your early experience with the YSA?
Yeah, well, I started my match racing in Victoria towards the end of school, and the YSA kids that used to come down to all the regattas we had in Victoria, or we used to always travel, they were always the envy, having all the coaching and the 10 boats and everything. And so that was always something we wanted to do, was get back to Sydney and become a part of the YSA so we could be on the other side of it for a change. But just the level of coaching and the level of competition that was about, and the ability to travel around the world and the regattas you could compete at were always a draw card.
Were you hoping to get into ocean racing, or did you want to stick in the harbour and do match racing, or did one become the other, or did you?
I think at the time the ocean racing was an always down the track sort of thing, and play around on the little boats while you're young, but they sort of interchangeable once you get up there and start sailing with the members at the same time.
And I guess a lot of members, and I know Jeff Lavis was one that offered his boat to take out YSA pupils, and I guess you got a fair guide of how you fitted into ocean racing by getting on bigger boats.
Yeah, so I was late to the Lavis campaign. That was after I was in the YSA. I was in with Graham Wood before that, and all the white yachts in the youth boats that he was running. So he had one boat for the youth academy, and so that was the ocean racing I got into first off. But it was always very welcoming and not a difficult thing to find a boat if you came out of the YSA, which was always pretty good and a great way for people to start.
Yeah. And Tom, your early experiences with the YSA?
Yeah, so it's probably a bit different because when I grew up in Belmont, it seems like that period we were quite familiar with being coached and having like camps and stuff like that, and we had the exposure to the New South Wales squads and things like that. So that wasn't as much of a culture shock, but I think it's just like a very widely respected program throughout the dinghy classes, and it's the alternate pathway as opposed to an Olympic pathway. And I know a lot of people do it in tandem, but the Olympic pathway is not possible for a lot of people, or it's not something they want to do because they don't want to take it as seriously. And I think that the YSA is a really good way that you can come in and do a really structured program at a high level. And yeah, that was kind of the reason. It's such a good stepping stone if you want to get into offshore racing as well. And it's really something that's pushed and encouraged. That's kind of my experience.
Yeah. And Ben, were you always keen to get into ocean racing? I mean, obviously with your dad and his boat wild thing, I mean, there was a natural stepping stone there for you. But did you always want to get into ocean racing?
Probably in the early days, probably not, to be honest. And I think Dad's first boat was a 29-foot boat. I can't even tell you what sort of boat it was. It was a little thing, and we used to do trips up to Pittwater. I used to get violently seasick, and I used to hate going at the heads. It was terrible, and so that probably put me off from a young age when I was a little fella. And then I think in the 90s we had Elusive, which was a 42-foot Jarkin, and that was a pretty good ocean-going boat. And I was lucky to have that opportunity to do a lot of harbour racing, and I love short course racing and match racing. But the offshore experience was also life-changing, really, being able to sail up to Queensland or down the coast and lots of short offshores, that sort of stuff. So I was able to enjoy both inshore and offshore, and literally the skills I learned from the YSA did set me up to be able to be a proper contributor to the boat.
Mm. Well, Amanda, you've done your reference what's next and with Jeff before, but you've done 2 Hobart races.
Yeah, so I did one, or both Hobarts were with the youth crew that Graham used to lend us a boat. And so one was on the Sydney 47, the What's Next. And then the next year he got a new boat, so he gave us the old one, which was the TP 52, the What Yacht.
And how are the Hobart experiences for you?
Oh, I had 2 very easy ones, and I'm thankful for that. So we had a slow one in the first one, and then a downhill flyer in the TP 52. So it only took us 2.5 days to get down there.
Right. And then you moved into the Australian Salient Development Squad for the Women's Match Racing Olympic program. Tell us all about that.
Yeah, so at the Nationals in Perth, they started it when they announced that London Olympics was going to have match racing in it. So it must have been the Nationals just after Beijing, so 2009 probably. And they decided they'd bring together 14 people and chose it all from the Match Racing Nationals in Perth. And I think 2 of us from the YSA were chosen, and a couple more ended up in it after the Nationals. But then we went on and did, it must have been 3 months in Europe for the next 2 years over the summer, driving around with 14 girls out of the back of 3 cars and doing regattas all over the world. And that was quite entertaining. But learned a lot and had some fantastic help and a lot of coaches. And I suppose that's the next serious step out of the YSA is to those sorts of things, if that's the path you want to take.
And who were your coaches at that time?
We had Dane Sharp, so same as Ben. And then Michael Dunstan did a bit of coaching, and Ewan McNichol, and Fletch did a little bit, Mike Fletcher, and a few other ins and outs used to come and give us their 2 cents worth, and it was always helpful. It was good to have some different thoughts on it.
Yeah. Now, Tom, would you say your forte is match racing at this stage? It seems to be from your CV.
Yeah, that's what I enjoy the most, and that's what I put most of my time into. But that's just kind of the focus of the YSA, right? So
yes,
that's what it's been. Yeah.
Sure. But so that's what you're obviously hard at now. But what about ocean racing? Does that hold any appeal for you at this stage?
Yeah, so I suppose the last 4 years it hasn't. I've been really into the inshore around the Cairns racing and have been linked up with members doing it, going to the J70 Worlds, been there twice with a member, Reg Lord, been really into the MC38s and other just university level fleet racing, as well as the match racing circuit. And it's never really interested me that much, even though there's always been that opportunity, until about this year, actually, when I've just grown up a little bit and started to look at it as something that might interest me. Yeah.
Now, I see you won the University World Championships in 2018. Is that right?
Yeah. That was a fleet racing event.
Where at and what sort of boats?
That was in Cherbourg, France. And it was really cool, actually. We're racing just inside a huge monument wall that Napoleon built, which had a really cool little back eddy that we knew for the first couple of days and no one else knew, which helped. And that was just a spur of the moment kind of thing with some guys from the YSA, my sister Jess, and 2 other guys who originally in the Royal Sydney Yacht Squadron program, who defected, I suppose you could say, to the YSA program. And it was kind of just a tap on the shoulder at uni. The guys said, "Hey, do you want to come to France in 3 weeks? I think we can throw this program together. The university will pay for it." So we went over there and just had some fun and ended up doing all right. Yeah.
And what sort of boats were they?
Oh, they were J80s. So the skills that we learned at the YSA sailing Elliott 7s were directly transferable. It's just another keel boat. And we found ourselves being the top team for boat handling as well. As a result, I think, of spending so much time in small keel boats.
And how many teams?
Probably 15 teams. Well, maybe 20. We had about 10 boats, and I think there was seating in the first bit. So probably about 20 teams.
And I noticed your daughter, Maddie, has she come through the YSA? Has she done any work there? Or she's a sailor, isn't she? She's doing some sailing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So she started out sailing Manly Juniors out of Brooklyn, out of Pittwater. Did that for, I think, about 3 seasons. And then she, I think she was 12, got the opportunity to steer a cherub, just went out for a bit of a play and steered a cherub when she was 12. And like that was it. She just wanted to sail skiffs, which is why I got back into skiff sailing as well. But that's probably another story. Yes, I think she started when she was 13 or 14 at the YSA, and she's done pretty much every year since, except this year because she's doing a HSC at the moment. Yeah, she sort of worked her way up through there. She's started to do some match racing. Absolutely loves it. Just loves it. It's for me, it's pretty cool to be able to know that I've been through that whole process around the same age, and and nowadays it's bigger and stronger and more diverse, and the opportunities that'll come for her is pretty awesome as well.
Is she telling Granddad what to do yet on Wild Thing, or haven't got to that?
Of course she is. Of course she is. Yeah. Yeah, and she did her first Southport last year.
Terrific.
So that was pretty cool. She and she got a dream run. I mean, it was a pretty easy race, which was perfect because it'll give her a good memory of how good it can be out there. But yes, look, she's definitely keen to get more serious when she gets on the other side of the HSC, and she's definitely as soon as she's old enough, she'll be going to Hobart. That's on her wish list. Unfortunately, it won't be on Wild Thing because it's not set up for Hobart, but I'm sure she'll find a ride somewhere.
Terrific. Now, Amanda, back to you. You won the 2009 Women's World Match Racing Championship with Nikki Suter.
Yeah. So that was all part of the Australian Sailing and Development Squad stuff as well. So that we ended up with 2 teams in that, and so we just got split down the middle, and I somehow ended up on the bow of Nikki's team, and they were on the much like the Perth boats, the Foundation 36 type things, and it was very cold and wet, but a great place to sail, and they put you up, and yeah, we ended up having a really good regatta and brought it all together at the end. I suppose the best thing about those programs were you'd sailed with so many different people and in so many different spots that, we're pretty good at gelling as a team very quickly during a regatta. So,
was Olivia Price on the scene then?
She was. I can't remember whether she was on our boat. She may have been on the other boat. She was on the whole time. She was the one in Perth who got picked with us, so she was on the team the whole time, but she may have been on Katie Spitill's team in that one.
Right, okay, yeah. And Nikki Suter, she was steering your boat? Yeah,
Nikki was steering. I think Lucinda Whitty may have been on our boat. Mm-hmm. We did so many regattas in so many different combinations, it's all, you forget who was on it in each one.
Yeah. So, Tom, what are you up to now? What's on the horizon for you?
So last December, on the horizon for the America's Cup, they announced a Youth America's Cup. And so myself and the coach, Jordan Reese, have just been putting together a campaign to challenge for that on behalf of the CYCA. Okay. So that's been taking up a lot of time.
Yeah. Just getting to the America's Cup itself, what do you think of these boats, these new 72-foot foilers that they've designed for the Cup specifically?
I think they're incredible. I think the concept when it came out was really simple but effective. Coming as I was studying engineering, and all my engineering friends were looking at them and just kind of really amazed at the simplicity of how all the mechanics, obviously it's really complicated at a minute level, but conceptually, I think it's a really good idea. And I think that it was really good to see the first couple boats sailing in what seems like a really stable manner. So yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. Well, I see you've done well in the, you've twice the Australian Youth Match Racing Champion, twice New South Wales Match Racing Champion. So you must look at the America's Cup and these big match racing events and think, wow, that's something that I could really progress in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the cool thing about the YSA is that there's stories of these alumni who are in the America's Cup and in the Sal GP right now. So it's a really cool community to be in, where at no point do you ever feel like something's unachievable. And yeah, so it's the sort of thing that definitely anyone in the YSA could set their sights to and have the support network to go after it.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking now as you're speaking that the graduates, some of the Olympians, Will Ryan, Olivia Price, Lucinda Whitty, that you'd mentioned, Amanda, then America's Cup champions, Kyle Langford, Volvo Ocean Races, Kyle Langford and Tom Cloud all have graduated out of the YSA. So it's very impressive that the program has been so successful. And, you know, you don't always have to be an Olympian, but you've learned how to sail. And I think we'd all agree that that's been a huge benefit for the YSA. Would you agree with that, Ben, that it's produced a lot of champions, but you don't necessarily have to be a champion. It's just produced some good sailors.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. It's quite remarkable, really, when you read out the names like that. It's pretty extensive, and I think it's just getting stronger and stronger. It's very impressive.
Yeah. Tom, are you doing much coaching as well? Are you doing a lot of coaching?
Yeah. So that's been one of the ways I've been supporting myself in Sydney. I do the CYCA, the programs that are for younger people, like the DMR, the TSS, and coach at school holiday courses as well. Most advanced squad members actually do that in some way or another, and I also do some private 29er coaching and coach at a school, Cranbrook, for their youth programs. Yeah.
And what about Olympics? What's your feeling there? You've got a feeling to go on there and do something?
Oh, like going after it?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. It's always been one of those things. Like the barrier to getting the Olympics is always buying a boat, right? And so you look at possibilities like NACRA 17 or 49er, which I would be interested in. And there's always, I don't know, $50,000 barrier to even get it in the sights of the team. And then however much a campaign costs. So that was one of the things that I really liked about the YSA, is that a young person like myself can come in with next to no money next to their name and succeed because of the support that the club gives you. Yeah.
Amanda, you represented the CYC with 3 past Commodores at the New York Invitational Regatta in 2011. Tell us about that.
I did. I think that was Father Fuller's.
Dave Fuller, Hugo,
yeah,
and Gary Lineker.
Yeah, so the 3 past Commodores obviously got together and decided that they needed some young kids on the boat to do the work. So we ended up with at least Evan and I out of the YSA, Evan Walker and I, and then a couple of others. And I think there was 10 of us on the boat, and 5 of us might have been young enough to do something. And then the other boys were the steerers, and then you got somebody from, so an owner's representative, because they gave you all the boats in Newport. And that was a pretty interesting regatta. That you had one day on the boat beforehand and with the owner's rep learning the boats, and then go out there for 4 or 5 days and have a crack at it. But it was an excellent regatta to do, and they do it really well over there, and just more of those opportunities because of the YSA. And the Elliot was our 6s at the time, but they're close enough to keel boats, and everyone was going Far 40 racing and Sydney 38 racing. Everyone was the light 10th person or doing something on those sorts of boats out of the YSA. So it was pretty easy to pick kids up, and because match racing teaches you to be pretty skilled on all sorts of boats, it was easy to take kids and a very simple option for those past Commodores to take a few kids and make life easy for them. But it was an excellent regatta.
Yeah. Now, Tom, between your sailing, you're studying engineering at Uni New South Wales, is that right?
Yeah. I'm studying aerospace engineering there.
And you're doing a thesis on something, are you, of interest?
Yeah, I'm doing a thesis on trying to optimize the aerodynamics of a mast, which is something that you see. I suppose it's kind of coming up more recently. You've got Brett Perry rolling around the harbour in his soft wing sailboat. And you see the America's Cup going to soft wings now for practicality, but in past years they've been rigid wings because of the efficiency. So it's kind of, I'm trying to research turbulators and how efficient they might be on masts, just as like a clip-on, I suppose, for standard rigs. Yeah.
And where's it going to lead us, do you think? I mean, you're doing wind tunnel testing, and how do you do all that?
Yeah, so it's like a mandatory part of the engineering degree. You have to do an honours thesis. So I hooked up with the head of aerodynamics at UNSW under his supervision, and then kind of maps out, you have to do computational fluid dynamics testing first. And so you run all those numbers, and then you can compare that data against the numbers that you get out of the wind tunnel and see if it's going to be effective. Right. So it's quite cool to be able to bridge the two worlds that I've been living in for the past 5 years in my final project.
Sounds pretty easy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah. Ben, I guess you keep an interest in America's Cup. I just want to keep coming back to that because I think they're incredible, as Tom said earlier. What do you think of these new boats that they've developed?
I just want to have a go.
Yes.
just amazing. Like they just, the technology, like Tom said, they're so simple, but the amount of technology that's in these things is just incredible. And I just love watching them, and I'll never get to experience it, I don't think, but I just think it's just so great that the sport continues to evolve and push the boundaries, and we still have that heritage of traditional sailing, plus we've got the next level of the Formula One style racing and everything in between. So I just fully support it, and the opportunities that are being given to some of the youth sailors now to get into that level of sailing is just awesome. So yeah, bring it on.
Now, Amanda, you're a long way from the water at the moment where you're living. What are you up to?
So we've got a sheep farm about 2.5 hours from Sydney, out near Bathurst. So I play farms and bring up 2 young kids at the moment.
Right. So we're going to get back into sailing at some stage?
Yeah, well, I think the 2 boys must nearly be the 2 youngest members at the YSA at the moment. They're 1 and 3 and are signed up full members. So
Fantastic.
So they're ready to go. They'll be down there shortly. We're just working on the swimming lessons at the moment, and then we'll be on the boats.
Right. Now, what advice would you give to someone that might be watching and that wants to get into sailing and the benefits of the YSA and what they should do to avail themselves of what's available here at the club?
Yeah, so I guess if you've got no other family into it, then your school holiday courses are your perfect place to start. And a lot of kids do. We did a lot of coaching with brand new kids with no family experience, and you work out pretty quickly whether you want to keep doing it or not. And those kids come back and back and back, and then end up in the squads coming through, and then quite quickly end up on members' boats as well, doing your weekend racing and things. But I mean, anyone can get into it. I mean, the YSA runs programs for the Friedman Foundation, for example, which is your lower socioeconomic schools and things like that. And a lot of those kids have come back to school holiday courses and been able to get on boats for twilights or winter series races. So it's definitely something that's very achievable within the YSA, and I wouldn't find too many other clubs that you would be able to facilitate those sorts of things. I guess being straight onto keel boats is a bit easier for kids who've never grown up with it young. Maybe a dinghy is a bit of a foreign concept and a bit out of their league, but keel boats with a few other people at these holiday courses make it seem all that much more achievable to them.
Yeah. And Ben, your feelings there, I guess you share them the same as Amanda, but if someone wants to get into sailing, you'd steer them YSA way and all the programs that are available, whether you can sail or not.
Absolutely. Like it's just such a good foundation, I guess, to start with, and if kids can get in early, it just teaches them skills that they'll have forever. I don't know, I have. I mean, the stuff I learned back in the 90s, I still use it today. And it'll be with you forever. Whether you go on to be like Tom and get right into it and take to the next level, or if you want to become a casual sailor and do some cruising or whatever it might be, it really sets the foundations for how to manage a boat, sail trim, understanding weather, and and I guess just it's a good sport, isn't it? I mean, you're outside,
Yeah.
it's healthy, and it's something you'll have forever. So I think it's, as a starting point, it's just absolutely perfect.
And Tom, your feelings, and I guess you share them with Ben and Amanda, of how to get into it and try and develop through the YSA.
Honest with everything that they've said, echo what Ben was just saying about what you experience and what you learn, not just as a sailor, but as a young person, really, I think can change the trajectory of your life. So yeah, I don't know, full recommendations to anyone who's looking into it. And I think that it's a really well-paved program that you don't need to come in with any experience or any sort of sailing family, and you can go through and start winning nationals. One good example of that is someone I used to sail with, Emma Harrison, got into sailing. She did sail at Des Moines, but her family knows nothing about sailing. And roll back to 2 years ago, she was sailing with me, winning the Australian match racing championships. And that's a lot of the credit goes to the YSA. She got into it from school holiday programs and progressed through to a very high level.
She just won the Cherub Nationals as well.
Exactly.
Which I was also competing in as one of the oldest blokes in the water, but I was there. I made it. But yeah, it just goes to show. I mean, she just outstripped the fleet. It was pretty impressive, and I think the skill sets that she learned is all those foundations have come from the YSA, no doubt.
And there's a lot of good classes around. I mean, for skiff sailing, I mean, we mentioned the Flying 11s, the Cherubs. There's so many really not good classes that kids can get into and develop their skills from there, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. There is. It's and I think starting out on a small boat is good, and that's something I'd definitely recommend in terms of trying to mix, dinghy sailing of some description with YSA sailing. If you can do both, I think in my opinion, it's a really good benefit to have, because obviously dinghies aren't forgiving, and it is a good way to learn, because if you stuff up, you end up upside down. Whereas on a big boat, you might broach it, or go head to wind, or break something potentially. But again, it's just it does give you those good foundations to get on any sort of boat.
Yeah. And Ben, are you proposing to do the Gold Coast race on Wild Thing? Is that going to do the race? Yeah.
We'll be there. We'll be there again this year. I don't think we've missed many in the time that we've had the boat, which is 21 years, I think now. Hard to believe. But no, the boat's it's just had a lot of work done to it again, and it's looking like a glamour again, and we'll be going north 100%.
Yeah, well, the border's just been open, so that's great. And what about you, Amanda? You're going to get off the farm and do a couple of ocean races?
Not this year, but I suppose we'll be getting back into it as the kids get older and get a bit more time.
Yeah.
Get back down to the yacht club again.
Yeah. And Tom, have you got any match racing regattas coming up? I guess the world's a bit different with this virus. So have you got anything locally coming up?
I was going to try to break into the World Match Racing Tour this year, and got a couple of good invitations. So that's still up in the air, but the local regattas are all going to start running again. Like the states and the nationals are running at the CY, and squad starts not this weekend, but the next one. So yeah, it's all systems go.
And we're hosting the FAR 40 World Titles here in March. Are you linked up with any boats there for that event?
Not yet. I was originally linked up with the Finn, Janie Treleaven's boat. That was kind of a YSA boat, actually. Every single person on it was YSA, I think, and Janie was YSA as well. So yeah, every single person. But I think they're selling that boat. So at the moment, I'm not linked with that regatta at all.
Just getting back to that World Match Racing Tour, how do you get a ticket to that? I mean, how do you get an invitation to jump into that circuit?
So the ISAF has a world ranking for match racing. And so every regatta you do, even if it's the Captain John Piper regatta run at the CY, it all accounts for ranking points. And so if you do the Australasian circuit with the CY, you don't even have to do that well, to be honest. You're getting like fifths and stuff like that going through, and you do a year of that, you'll probably have a ranking in the top 200, top 300. And then you start doing well, you can start to travel and get some good international results. Then you could find yourself in the top 100 or 50 or even top 10. And then probably at the top 30, you'd be looking to apply to the World Match Racing Tour events. And it's all just done case by case. They look at you and who else has applied and decide if it's going to be good to have you at the event.
And how's your world ranking at the moment?
Oh, I haven't looked at it, to be honest, in ages. But after the Youth Worlds in Russia, I can't remember. It was up near the top 10, I think. But yeah, it wouldn't be any good anymore because I haven't done any events since then. Right.
But if you got in the top 10, that would make it reasonably easy to get into the World Match Racing circuit?
Yeah, certainly they'd want you at a few events to see how you go. And the thing is that even if you don't get invited straight to an event, most events have qualifiers, which are a lot of grading. So you can generally get an invite to one of those and then try to win that and get an entry into that next level.
And if you got invited, do you take your own crew, and how's that funded?
Yeah, so I have been invited to the Bermuda Gold Cup, which is really cool. And you just take whoever you think is going to be the best, essentially. So I was going to be taking all the YSA sailors if that event still runs, and that kind of is outside the jurisdiction of the YSA funding, but they have a ad hoc funding program which you can apply for. And essentially at that point, you're just looking at members you've been sailing with who might be interested in supporting you. Yeah, that's kind of how you do it.
Yeah. Well, I know Peter Gilmore, the Western Australian, he was highly successful on the tour, but, he was on it for a long while. I don't know, 10 or 12 years. And he went to had great success and all over the world. And, I knew that was, for him, it was a hard grind getting funding to do it, but it was a very worthwhile exercise for him, obviously.
Yeah, and you have sailors who are still doing it. Harry Price has been doing it for the last 2 years and has had some good success on that. I think he finished 5th in the last finals, which is incredible. Yeah.
All right, well, we might say goodnight, I think, and wrap it up. To Amanda, stay well out on the farm. Hope the sheep are growing plenty of wool for you.
Yeah. Meat we do out here.
Oh, wheat, okay, right.
Meat sheep.
Oh, meat, I'm sorry. Oh, you're right. Ben, good to see you, and nice to hope that you have a good, successful race at the Gold Coast. And Tom, best of luck with your engineering and aerospace and designing masts. Who knows, there might be a pot of gold at the end of the tunnel for you.
Yeah, we'll see.
So thanks, guys. Been very informative, and good luck in your future endeavours.